Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for coming to our first ever Zoom panel discussion. My name is Rob Ziol, and I'm the director of the Center for Public and Nonprofit Management here at the Levin College of Urban Affairs. On behalf of Dean England and the college, I just want to say thank you for coming today, being present in our first ever panel discussion, and just we're excited to have everyone here this year. We know it's all different, a new normal because of the COVID, the pandemic, and just different life in general. But I just want to say that I'm really excited for how everything has turned out. We have a great class, 44 students. I believe we have 46 mentors. So we're still over 90 people participating in the class. And as we started to plan for this year, Alexandra and the rest of the team did a wonderful job of identifying ways that we can still stay connected. And part of that connection was this mentoring panel discussion series. In the past, we have had one panel discussion, and we identified, 4 or 5 subject matter experts from across all of our different disciplines. But this year, we decided to add additional panels to focus on specific areas of concentration, which I think is a brilliant move. Number one, it allows us to continue to stay engaged throughout this crazy year, which is really important. But also too, there are so many fantastic mentors that are part of the group and part of our family that we need to find ways to showcase all of their abilities and talents and kind of learn more about them. So that's what this panel series is all about. And I'm going to step back for a minute and just talk about my perspective. When I was a student, I didn't know what I wanted to do. I knew I wanted to help people. I knew I wanted to make a difference, but I didn't know what that meant. I didn't know what that looked like. And so to me, the mentoring program allows us as students and those that are trying to figure out what they want to do with their career to get a look behind the scenes and see and learn from folks that are doing this, that have outstanding careers and are making a difference in our community. So as we go through today and the other series in the future, take a look at it from that perspective of these are the best and the brightest in the area, and these folks have been there and done it, and trying to learn and trying to take notes and explore and discuss and connect with them as we move forward, because these are the folks that have not only been there and done it, but want to come back and add value and help us as we all navigate the next steps of our careers. So I believe we have 3 or 4 other panels in addition to our speed networking. So we have a lot of things planned for this year. And before I transition it back to Alexandra for the next steps, I just want to thank the panel that are all here today for making the commitment, not only for today's event, but being part of our team over the years and continuing to add value. If it wasn't for the mentors and it wasn't for your willingness to be part of this program, we wouldn't have the robust plan that we have right now. So I just want to say thank you for your individual contributions and sharing a little bit of your time with us as we move forward. So, and again, this program is designed and created by Senator Grace Drake. She's not here with us today, but she gives her best. And on behalf of Grace, we want to say thank you. And we appreciate continuing on the legacy that she built. So without further ado, I'm going to pass the baton over to Alexandra Higl, who will give us some instructions and start this party off. So Alexandra.
Thanks, Rob. So good afternoon and welcome. As Rob said, my name is Alexandra Higl, and I serve as the program manager at the Center for Public and Nonprofit Management at Levin. So we are thrilled to kick off our Meet the Mentors panel series today. As Rob said, we're pleased to launch a 4-part series. So today we'll hear from 4 current and former environmental studies mentors. On December 2nd, we'll have our urban planning and development panel. In January, we'll showcase our nonprofit management mentors. And in February, we'll feature our public sector mentors. So a few ground rules for today's panel. Rob and I will ask the mentors some questions related to their careers, professional journeys, and the environmental field. we're reserving the last 30 minutes or so for audience Q&A. So with that said, we encourage you to chat your questions in the Q&A box throughout today's program. So anytime you would like, feel free to chat that, and we will go ahead and look at those questions towards the last portion of today's program. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce our 4 panelists. So today we are pleased to be joined by Jennifer McMillan, Director of Sustainability for Cleveland State University, Kurt Princic, District Chief of the Ohio EPA Northeast District Office, Philena Seldon, Outreach and Education Liaison from the City of Cleveland's Office of Sustainability, and Paul Solanics, Director of the City of Solon's Water Reclamation Department. So let's begin by having each panelist briefly introduce themselves. So panelists, tell the audience a little bit about your background, what you do on a day-to-day basis, and anything else you'd like to share. And we're going to start with Paul.
Hi, everybody. I'm Paul Solanics. As Alexandra mentioned, I'm the director of the City of Solon Water Reclamation Department. We take care of virtually the daily operations and maintenance of the wastewater treatment plant, and we ensure compliance with the EPA permit that Mr. Princic enforces on us. Our wastewater that we treat all the wastewater for residential, industrial, and commercial users in the City of Solon. We have very good rates, I'm proud to say. We are very proud of our facility here and our city. We maintain very good compliance with the EPA. We have a really good relationship with the EPA. I thank Kurt for all his help in maintaining compliance. As a matter of fact, I look at that picture of Philena there that she has in the background, and that's one of the main reasons that we're here, is to protect that water environment. I've been here for 38 years. I actually started as a seasonal employee when I was going to Cleveland State to become an electrical engineer. That didn't pan out, and I started looking at what people had done here in this field, and I thought, this is something that I'm really excited about, protecting the environment, and this is something that I can do. So this ended up being my career. I started off, as I mentioned, as a seasonal employee. Then I actually got promoted to a maintenance manager back in like 1993. Boy, that's going back. And then in 2005, I was actually appointed the director. So, the water we treat discharges to the Tinkers Creek watershed, ends up into the Cuyahoga, and then discharges into Lake Erie and gets recycled into our freshwater supply. Thank you.
Excellent. So next on my screen is Jennifer.
Hi, everyone. Nice to be here with you today to have a chance to talk about mentoring. So again, I'm Jen McMillan. I'm the Director of Sustainability at Cleveland State University. And what that really means on a daily basis is that I wear a lot of hats. I sit within the facilities services department. So it's an operational role, which means my job is to think about setting goals and targets for improving our environmental performance. I think about energy efficiency and emissions reduction strategies. I work on composting and recycling programs. I work on programs to promote alternative transportation options to campus. I'm currently working on a green lab program to help our laboratories save energy and water. So it's really fun because I have a really kind of broad scope of things that I work on. And the other thing that's really fun about my job is it really varies in what I'm doing. So one day I might be talking about, setting environmental policy and strategy with our high-level administration. And another day I might be on the ground with students and custodians putting recycling labels on our bins, right? So it's really, I get to interact with the entire campus community, and it's really fun. Just a little bit about my background. So I'm from Minnesota originally. I did my undergraduate degree there, and I did a double major in cultural anthropology and Spanish, and a minor in environmental studies. And so then, you know, I did some wandering around after that. I'm here to tell you that it's okay to have a windy path. The first thing I did as an internship after that degree program was an internship in environmental health. And I was working with Hispanic migrant workers on farms in Idaho. And from there, I did all sorts of things. I tutored Spanish. I was a seasonal naturalist for the Metro Parks when I moved here to Cleveland, and I did outdoor education with the Girl Scouts. So I've done lots of different things. And then I had the really amazing opportunity through a Rotary Foundation scholarship to go to Australia to get my master's degree. So I did an environmental science degree there, and stayed because I loved it. I spent a year then in an academic sustainability role, looking at sustainability in the higher education curriculum. And then I moved into an operational role for the sustainability office there. And this was at the Australian National University in the capital, Canberra. And I did that for 7 years. I was supposed to only stay 1, but I loved it. So I kind of got stuck there. And that was kind of my entrance into higher ed sustainability, which I love doing. So, and did that until I came back here and I landed this position at Cleveland State.
Excellent. Thank you, Jen. Philena, you're up.
Okay, so I am Philena Seldon. I'm the Outreach and Education Liaison in the Office of Sustainability for the City of Cleveland. On a daily basis, so I work to bridge the divide that exists between what I do professionally, and that's in sustainability, and what that translates to in the community. My path was a long and winding one, and it's still going. The best way I could say it is that I started in sustainability because my grandmother started one of the first community gardens in the city. But along with that, we juiced all the time. And I just wrote an article for the sustainablecleveland.org website in our office. My grandmother grew just about all of our produce. And what she didn't grow, we went and shopped for at the West Side, Central, and East Side markets, along with the Home Depot, or the Food Depot, sorry, and the later on at the food co-op. So I learned firsthand what it meant to grow, what I was going to consume. I also went and spent time on farms and learning how to process what I was going to consume. So the whole, you know, where my food comes from and how much I care for it and how I care for the environment was something that was instilled in me very early on. I now still juice. I make juice and use reusable containers that have insulation. I think that would make my grandmother very proud of me. But shortly after I began working for the city, so flash forward, shortly after I began working for the city of Cleveland in 2006, I recognized the opportunity to demonstrate how sustainability wasn't everything and it was everywhere. And that was my aha moment in terms of my career, because up until that point, I assumed that everyone saw things the same way I did. Now I develop programs and projects that help people see their direct connection to things, big and small, regarding sustainable principles and practices. And I just love what I do. So currently I'm a mentor here at Cleveland State. I've been involved, this is my 2nd year. Prior to this, I wrote what's called the Water Cycle Project for the city, where people would learn how directly, the kids specifically, intake, treatment, distribution, and maintenance of our water in order to make it potable. I work on the Youth Sustainability Leadership Program, where I help kids do the same thing, which is I help them understand that sustainability isn't everything around them. So we go to the library, we go to the Botanical Garden, we go to the Museum of Natural History, the Art Museum, and all of that requires that you understand sustainability and not just art or flowers or history. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Philena. All right, last but not least, Kurt.
Hello, everyone. My name is Kurt Princic. I'm the district chief at Ohio EPA Northeast District Office. I've been with Ohio EPA since 1991, and I started off my career as an environmental engineer in the solid waste program. Was fortunate enough to get a few promotions over the years and then became district chief in 2011. My background is bachelor's degree is in environmental engineering technology from the University of Dayton. And then I got my master's in public administration from Cleveland State in 1999. So what we do, you may be familiar with Ohio EPA. We're charged with all of the main regulatory programs for environmental protection. That's surface water, land, hazardous waste, air pollution, drinking water. And in our office, we handle all of those programs, and I have staff who go out throughout Northeast Ohio and work with facilities, manufacturing, public water supplies, or with Paul Solonics staff at Solon. We have a regulatory oversight and then technical compliance and assistance as well. As far as my job is concerned, I think what I like about it the most is similar to Jennifer, there is no one day that is the same. I am involved, one day I can be dealing with building management issues because we have a leaky roof, or the next day I can be working on the Ultium battery project in Lordstown. So there's always something different going on. And usually, the technical projects are higher profile, often involve job creation in the state. So they're exciting projects to be involved in. And it's always something nice to, as you reflect on your career, you think, wow, I worked on that project and that was a home run for the state of Ohio. So that's one of the things I really enjoy about my job. In our office, we have about 150 staff. And the majority of staff are technical. They're scientists and engineers. And then we also have administrative staff. So, it's a great group of people. That is another, thing of what I love about my job is just the people I work with and how committed they are to their jobs and into the environment and to residents of Northeast Ohio. So, I think that's it.
Thank you. I think we're going to be shifting over to some questions now. Alexandra and I are going to go rotating back and forth with a series of questions that we solicited from our students. And then at the end of a rotation, we'll have some time at the end for Q&A from the audience. And so for those of you that are in the audience, if you would like to queue up a question, feel free to put that in the chat box there, and Alexandra will be monitoring that. We'll probably get to that about 5:30 or so. And sorry about my dog. She's really excited to be here today too. So I apologize. So I knew I should have closed the door. Anyway, I'm going to ask the question and put myself on mute. And my dog Nala is not allowed to answer that question. So I'm not sure why she's contributing. But I will be kicking off the question part. We have a mentor related section here, a couple questions around mentoring. And so my question is a two-part question. The first part is, how long have you been involved in the CSU mentoring program, which a few of you have already said. So how long have you been involved with our program? And then second part of that question is, why is mentoring others or having a mentor important for you? So I'm not sure who wants to go first. Paul, if you want to give it a crack.
Sure, I'll go first. So I've been involved with the mentoring program probably since 2011, 2012. And this really stemmed from something that Rob and I had been involved with. As I mentioned before, I took a public management class at CSU, and we had always talked about trying to enlighten students on what we do. In our field, we need people that are interested in environmental jobs. There's a lot of opportunity there. Specifically in the wastewater and water field, it's hard to find people to fill those positions. So we're always looking for candidates to fill those positions. We had many talks Rob and I discussions about, just the retiring workforce. And, there's a lot of people that are my age that are ready to retire. And, who's going to fill those jobs if there's not, people don't even know what you do. So, the conversations were always revolved about how do we, let people know about what we do, and how do we broadcast, the importance of what we do. So it really started as a conversation. We came down to CSU and kind of talked about doing internships, doing things of that nature to try to enlighten students on what we do. And again, the importance of the environment. So that's really my main objective to be here, is to enlighten people on what we do. And I think when you look at the environmental group, all the people that are here, we're all interconnected one way or another in water, sustainability, green energy, renewable energy. It all ties together and all important for Northeast Ohio. We have the lake. The conversations are always about how do we bring, economic development back to the city. We need to capitalize on our water source. I mean, water is really important throughout the whole world. There's water issues, and we have it right here in our backyard, and it's really important to protect that resource. What was the other question we had, Rob? Well, I guess I'm just expounding on why it's important. So
I covered it. The length of time, my dog was loud there, is the length of time you're involved in the mentoring program and why mentoring is important to you.
Yeah, so I guess that's really it. And to have a mentor to show you and guide you through is really a huge asset. So I commend the students that are actually involved in the program, because it's a really great thing to hear people that are out there in the field, and to be able to hear their experience of what they do, especially if it interests you. And even if you don't know where you're going, as Jennifer and Philena had mentioned, sometimes you don't know the path that you're going down. And, when you hear, professionals in the field talk about their experiences and things, maybe a light will click on for you and, open a door.
Yeah, great. I don't know if anybody else wants to jump in. You can just raise your hand, or feel free to make this conversation. Philena, you raised your hand, so rock and roll.
All right. So I said, let's see, I already said I've been involved in the mentoring program here with Cleveland State this is my second year, right, Rob?
Mm-hmm.
I always have to get that from you because I always forget. So,
Me too.
and why is mentoring others and having a mentor important to me?
Mm-hmm.
Mentoring others is important to me because I believe in succession planning, much like Paul mentioned. It's the greatest confidence builder. As we identify the next generation of leaders, we foster what I call human sustainability that ensures continuity in professionals or professional tracks, if you will, like public administration where I work, where we need people on the ground ensuring we have our city services that work also protecting the environment. I mean, that's the best I could say. Try to keep it concise, Rob.
Thank you. No, I appreciate that. That's also a great answer. Kurt or Jen, I'm sure who wants to jump in.
I can go. I think I said this, I've been involved in the mentoring program since at least 2011. And I got involved with this, for full disclosure, is because Senator Drake called me, and if you've ever been on the phone with her, there's no way you can say no. So that was my introduction into the mentoring program, and it's been a real fun ride, and I've truly enjoyed it since 2011. I feel like it also gives me an opportunity to grow. When I started, it's like, I'm like, why do they want me to be a mentor? What do I have to bring to the table? And it, as you get, like anything, you get more seasoned in it, and and I feel like I get better and better every year. I was fortunate to have a professional mentor, Bill Skoronsky, who is also in this program. And, when I talked to Bill when he retired, and I truly, thanked him for what he did for me in my career. And all he wants me to do is pay forward. He goes, when you have the opportunity, you take it and you help someone else out. And that's what I truly enjoy about it. Whether I'm with the Boy Scouts or I'm coaching or, in this mentoring program or with other staff at work, it is very rewarding to help people get started in their careers and to see them grow and be there for them, because there will be times in their careers, and we've all had it, where you're in a jam and you have that person to reach out to you who can call it like he sees it and really help you out and not sugarcoat it and tell you what you need to hear. So that's what's important. And that's what I like about this mentoring program and why I've been engaged. And it has truly been something that I've been glad to do and glad to be a part of for, almost the last 10 years.
Thanks, Kurt. Jen?
So I've been formally involved in this mentoring program for a year. So I'm pretty new to doing this formally, but so I think it's important to have a mentor for many of the same reasons. It's really important to have somebody that you trust to run ideas past, and who will give you, often it's someone who's older than you, who's been in the field longer, who can tell you how they see it from a different perspective. And so for me, that's been really important in times when I've been deciding to move countries or move jobs and think about how to do a job search, or should I make this kind of career shift? So I've found that to be really valuable. And I will say too, that you don't have to get too hung up on the term mentor. Like, I've had all these amazing mentors my whole life and I never thought of them that way. Now I sort of do. But you can have a mentor-mentee relationship with someone without giving anybody that label. So realize there are lots of people in your life already who are mentors. And then it's important to me to be a mentor because I don't really feel like I had that kind of person right out of college, and I did some floundering, right? I didn't have that person to kind of help me see the bigger picture who had more experience. So now I feel like I work with a lot of students, and I feel like I'm often giving unsolicited advice because I feel like from my perspective, I sort of know some of the things you need to know that you don't even know you should be asking those questions, right? So I'm trying to share some of that knowledge that I just wish I would have known, to my younger self, much of which is stress and hang in there, and you've got plenty of time to do all the things you want to do. So I think it's really important on both fronts to have a mentor and be a mentor.
Thank you. Alexandra, I think it's your turn.
Yeah, so I think that's a really great transition to our next question. So would you all mind sharing maybe a pivotal moment you encountered in your career where you had a mentor guide you through that experience, and maybe talk a little bit about what that was, why it was so important, and what that mentor did to support you through that time? So who would like to start? Philena?
So I chose to mention my first project I worked on at the city of Cleveland. It was pivotal because I was originally kind of housed in the Division of Water, and I had no idea what we did. I went around asking people the one question, what do we do? And everyone told me what they did in their job capacity, but not in totality what water did for us. Like, what do we do as a whole? That led to me developing the water cycle project. And I had a really good mentor who sat me down with another person who helped me focus on, but they brought focus and clarity to what I was doing. And that's something that I had not had prior to. So I was able to ask the important questions. And the questions at the time were, where does the water come from? How is it processed? How is it maintained? And how is it distributed? From there, it helped me formulate all the other questions I would probably ask that related to water. And then it also led to me developing other projects and keeping the things that were on the forefront that I needed to pay attention to, not just how I was affected by it, but how we were all going to be affected by it. So that was how it happened.
Who would like to share? Kurt?
I can go. The one project that really comes to mind in the early 2000s, I was involved with there was a landfill in Stark County that had caught on fire and was causing significant health effects in the community because of the odors that were coming from the landfill. Federal and state regulators were engaged, a very active citizenry who were just furious with Ohio EPA and the facility, felt like we weren't doing anything right. So that project, and that's when Bill was in my position and I was a manager of the program, and just having he had been around the block, knew and could help me navigate some of those more challenging issues, especially with some of the elected representatives and citizenry, so that we could do our jobs and ultimately address the issues at the facility. And at the end of the day, you know, we worked with our federal counterparts at US EPA and were able to remediate the site. And it has not been an issue since, 2008. So we're 10 plus years into this. And it really, at one point, it was our director's most number one priority back in 2007, and now it's not even on her radar screen because it doesn't need to be. So that was where, just with all of the drama, both internal and external, that went with that project, having a seasoned veteran who could help you navigate through that was hugely important. And, as Bill always said, sometimes in your career, you got to be lucky enough to be unlucky enough to get a really crummy project and then see what you can do, and because it shows what you're made of, and it helps you develop in your career. And it's really true. It's hard to, when you're going through that, it just doesn't make any sense. But as you reflect, you kind of see the importance of having those really challenging projects that you're able to bring home and make happen. And that's what, that's what mentoring, and that's what that project was for me.
That's great. Thank you for sharing. Would anyone else like to contribute, Jen?
So when I was at the sustainability office of the Australian National University, we had this amazing team of 10 people in our office, right? We had everybody had specialist areas, and we were an amazing team. We had robust but hard discussions. We were all passionate about what we did. It was an amazing team. Our manager took a long service leave for 1 year, and they brought in somebody from the outside to replace him, and he was really not a good fit. I don't think he'd ever managed people, and he wanted to come and do all these drastic things, and all we needed was somebody to come in and sort of be the captain of the ship and just steer things that was already going in a good direction, right, for a year. He wanted to change everything, and it was really stressful for the team. I, at the time, happened to be enrolled in a certification program for leadership and management, and the woman who was the instructor was amazing, and she turned out to be a real mentor through this time, because I felt like I was watching all the things that are probably not the best ways to step in and manage a team right in front of me. And so she was really able to help frame my thinking about it, right? So I could look at it and kind of be like, what would I have done in that situation? And how would I have stepped up and built the team up? And so it was just a crazy time. She was so valuable in helping me through it, because my team members were having angst and stress and anger, at this huge upheaval that was happening to our really terrific team. And so I felt like I was able to, because I had someone there who had a broader perspective on this, kind of guiding me through it, I could see the positives of his style. And I could kind of help be the leader for my team as well, to say, well, what if we approached it this way? Or maybe we need to talk to them about it from this angle. And now I think of it as, actually, it was a really positive experience, because I would have never learned all that I learned about leadership and management without all that kind of critical and reflective thinking that I had to do to get through that year.
Paul, go for it.
Okay, so I'm going to go down a little bit different path. And it kind of all fits together too. So early in my career, as I mentioned, I went to Cleveland State. I was going to become an electrical engineer, and didn't really know where my path was going to be when that kind of didn't work out for me. And so I got into this field, and I got all my operator certifications. And early on in my career, there was a position that opened up, and it was for the operations manager. And a lot of the people that were on the job had 20 plus years, had a lot more time in than I did. And I pushed myself. I got all my certifications very fast. As a matter of fact, there was a lot of people that didn't have the certifications that I was able to get. And so that made me eligible to apply for the position when it came up. So I applied for it. It consisted of an aptitude test that you had to know all your, virtually it was like a certification test to know what you knew about the treatment process. And then you had to go through a formal interview. So I went through it all and passed it, and actually got selected to get that position. But because I didn't have a mentor, and because I didn't have the confidence, I didn't take that job, because I wasn't confident in myself that I could do it. And to this day, I kick myself because I didn't. And it took another 4 years till I had another opportunity to be able to apply for a position. And 4 years later, as I mentioned, I was promoted to the maintenance manager position. And it was basically the same thing. If I would have known that, 4 years earlier, I probably would have jumped into the operations position and done that. But it was a position that, I applied for. I didn't have a lot of experience, but I just kind of jumped into the fire and did it. So where it comes down to experience and those things that teach you those certain things, that was a great lesson for me. And it actually helped me further in my career.
I think it's back to me. And so our questions for these next two questions are going to transition to more of a career related questions. I also think that this one has been touched on already, but just if you want to expand on this. But the question is, what's been the most challenging project in your career, and how did you approach it? Again, the most challenging project that you had experienced, and then what was your approach to overcome that? Jen.
So I don't know what the most challenging project is exactly, but I'm going to talk sort of about a time frame and how I approached it. So I told you just a little bit ago that I came from a 10-person office of sustainability, which is kind of unheard of. And then coming to the US, I kind of knew I was going to be part of a smaller team if I was still in higher ed. So I went from part of a 10-person team to a one-woman office of sustainability. And that was all fine, except, I knew that I was not an expert in all of those things, right? That my colleagues were as part of a team of 10. And so I have a broad knowledge of sustainability and quite a lot of depth in certain areas, but you just cannot be an expert in all things, right? We all know that, but you're very, I think, aware of the things that are maybe not your strong suits. And so when I came into this role at Cleveland State, in the back of my mind, I was like, I don't know enough about energy and like buildings and electricity and energy efficiency and all that kind of stuff. I'm not an engineer by training, but I knew all those things were very important for the role. And I wasn't going to have, somebody under me or in my office who necessarily was the expert in that. And so I was a little nervous about that, but what I did was like, I leaned into that, right? And I went to find those skills. So I actually asked my director if I could be part of the team that would be managing the next electricity procurement event. And so he said yes, and I ended up learning a lot from the people on that team. So one of whom is the director of the Energy Policy Center, which sits within Urban. So I worked a lot with Andy Thomas from that team and some of our other people within facilities. And I was clear about what I didn't know and what I thought I needed to know. And I asked the questions and I read and I did what I thought I needed to do to build my knowledge in that area where I was lacking. And, you know, now, a couple of years later, I probably know more than most people about, you know, demand and energy policy and regulation and renewable energy procurement and all of that kind of stuff, where I knew very little a couple of years ago. So my takeaway and, you know, advice on that is just seek out the opportunities to fill your knowledge gaps and ask the right questions, and don't be ashamed of the fact, you know, don't try to hide the fact that you just don't know what you don't know.
That's great. I love that comment. Go ahead, Philena.
So I'm chiming in here because it's not that I've had a challenging project so much as I've had a challenging period of time, much like Jennifer mentioned. And the challenging period of time is right now during a pandemic and social unrest and everything else that's going on, and attempting to help navigate students through a program without it being hands-on like it normally is. And now I have to be more creative and have a bigger imagination to have a tactile experience remotely. And like processing that has been a daunting task. And then you realize that the partners or the partnerships that you're forming are also grappling with how to embrace technology while also trying to figure out what normal looks like. And like, there's so many things that are going on, and it's such a fast pace to navigate in when you're attempting to mentor people and help them along, when you're looking to also be helped along while you're mutually helping each other. So that's the challenge that I have faced most recently. And the approach is, I again agree with Jennifer that we're all in this together, and most of us don't know anything that's coming because none of us have ever encountered it. And it's more of a wait and see and try and be as patient and hopefully optimistic as you possibly can be, and realize on the other side you're going to be able to smile and laugh at this as time goes on.
Kurt or Paul, you want to add, or you want to?
Sure, I can add on. I think Jennifer really gave some sage advice there. There, you know, is you know, and there's no one particular project, but over a career you have some things that come up, and I think one of the things is knowing what you don't know, because if you you know, there are experts all over. There's citizens who know a lot. You can really be put into a bad spot. So knowing what you don't know, and then A, either trying to learn it, or B, finding the people who do and relying on them to help navigate the problems. That's really important. And, you know, in the public sector, you also have to be able to talk to everyone, whether it's the irate citizen or it is the, you know, the newspaper reporter who may or may not be looking to you know, poke you in the eye. You need to be able to talk to the politicians. It doesn't matter which party they are. And you need to talk to the people you're regulating. And you develop those relationships and you develop credibility with all of them. And that's what helps your organization. We've all seen situations where there's been public, you know, corruption, or just someone falls down on the job. And as in the public sector, we all get painted in the same brush, and they think that we all did something wrong, or we're all lazy, or we're all, just living off the government. So, it's developing those relationships, developing that credibility, and then just sustaining that and continuing to strive to keep that going within your organization, and passing that down to your staff so that they do it as well, because we're all in this together.
So I just want to jump in here. I know that I'm not a panelist, so I'm probably gonna get in trouble. And Alexandra's gonna mute me. I know she will.
You can't help yourself.
I know, but so Bill Dennahan has been my mentor for a long time, and I'm not sure if you all know Bill Dennahan, but that guy has run every organization in the state. And I kept on picking his brain, like, how could you jump from this to that to the other thing, and like a leadership? How do you know all this stuff? And he's been my mentor for probably 15 years. And then a couple years ago, we went to lunch one time. This is after he retired, and he gave me the best advice, and I don't think he even paid attention to it. He just said, I knew that I didn't know what I was going into, but I knew I was smart enough to figure it out. And I was like, like, I guess I'm going to Jennifer's point and to Paul's point, like about having the confidence to know, like, I might not know all the answers, but I'm smart enough to figure it out, but also willing to jump into the deep end, in the sense of, Paul mentioned the comment about waiting for 4 years and then he's kicking himself, to say that he wasn't ready for that position when it came. And so I think what Mr. Dennahan, in my brain told me is like, you're smart enough to figure it out, go for it, and then you're gonna find a way to swim, and advance and grow. So to me, I think from the conversation I just heard, that's a really key point, those couple of things and I hope our students caught that, because it's really important as a chance to be successful. Is you got to take a risk, and you got to be willing to kind of just figure it out as you go, because none of us were born with a little chip in our brain that knew exactly what we were supposed to do. We had to kind of learn by just experiencing things. So, all right, Alexandra, I'm going on mute. I'm sorry.
Anyone else want to contribute before we hop into our next question? No? Okay. So this is actually a really, so Rob's little talk is a really good transition to this next question. So it's another career related question, and just looking at our audience list today, many of our students watching are just beginning their careers. So what piece of career advice would you give to your younger self? Or what's one thing that you wish you would have known when you were just starting your career? Paul?
Okay, so it kind of goes back, sounding like a broken record, but it kind of goes back to what I mentioned before, is that, you try to prepare yourself, you try to do as much as you can for what you know, and don't be scared to jump into the fire. Like Rob said, like, we are all talking about, you don't know everything, and you'll never know everything. It's great to have a mentor there to kind of, bounce questions off of and pick their brain on stuff, but you're never going to know everything. As Philena mentioned, we're facing this COVID issue right now, and who knew this was going to come up? It's been a totally different operation for all of us. You're experiencing it at the academic level. We're experiencing it in our field as well. And it's been a life-changing thing for us. And no one prepared us for that. You know what I mean? I remember back when Y2K happened, that we were, trying to plan for the big changeover of the computer systems were all going to crash. And we took all these precautions, but nothing happened, But I guess that's the best thing I could say, is that you're never going to know it all. There's always going to be that fear factor that you're going to have of worrying, but sometimes you just got to take that risk, as was mentioned before.
Anyone else want to contribute?
I'll speak up. I would tell my younger self to not be afraid to fail. That's how I'm going to learn something. and that I should be fearless in my failure, and that I should try it until it started to feel effortless. And then once that particular thing that I failed miserably at and was able to recover from, then I would just move to the next thing and do it all over again and keep doing that until I was comfortable doing as many things as I enjoyed, and that I was passionate about. And that takes me into the second part, which is to follow my passion. So many of us are talked out of pursuing the things that we dream about and the things that make us sing and dance when no one is looking. That I think if you follow your passion early on, you'll find satisfaction sooner, and the failures won't feel as harsh. So that's what I would tell my younger self.
Anyone else want to chime in? Sure, Jen, go for it.
Okay, I had to make a short list for this one. So here's my short list of things I would have liked to have known, and I think that students can benefit from now. So one is build your network whenever you can, and do it when you're a student if possible, right? Like look up the people who you think are really interesting, read their bio, and maybe like email them and ask if you can buy them a coffee. Well, maybe not right now, but in normal times, right? Ask if you can buy them a coffee just because you're interested in their trajectory, right? And how they got to where they are and what they've learned about their career. And if you do that when you're a student, I think it's just slightly less like you're not a job seeker then, you know, you're just like seeking information. I think it's a really great thing for students to do. And go to events. You know, the city runs all sorts of terrific sustainability events. So go to those. Many people who are working in sustainability and the environment are at those events. So go to those and meet people. Okay, my next one is don't despair if your first job or even your second or third job are not environmental jobs or sustainability jobs. I know it doesn't seem like it to students now, but you've got time, right? The first job will not be your perfect job. So think of them as stepping stones to, you know, getting to a career that you have in your mind. And my next point is tacks onto this one, which is incorporate sustainability into whatever you do. You don't need it into your job title to do it, right? If you're a purchasing manager, we need you to think about sustainability, right? Regardless of what you're doing, incorporate that into the work environment that you are in, because the world desperately needs that. And then another one is just to seek out opportunities. Don't wait for them to come to you. This is part of kind of my networking one. Like go find them, go ask people what they need and if you can help, and volunteer and do all of that. And my last one is learn to ask the right questions, right? When you're working, like try to figure out how you can solve mutual problems. You know, it's not just showing up and being like, I think we should do it this way. You know, so learning to ask the right questions is really like, hey, what if we did it this way? Have you thought about this? What problems are you having? And how can my work help to solve them? And yeah, I've just found that to be one of the best ways to like progress the things that I'm working on, by kind of tying it into what, you know, my colleagues need.
Thank you. I don't know, Kurt, did you want to contribute anything, or are we ready to move to the next question? You're on mute, my man.
I did it. I knew I was the first one to talk on mute.
You owe us all beers.
Yes, you're welcome. I heard lots of great stuff. The one thing and it's a similar theme, and this is something, you know, probably my background being an engineer and a little conservative is sometimes I didn't stretch myself. And especially when you're in school, this is the perfect time to do it. I mean, get involved in some club that you would never even think about, might be something different. And I explain this to my sons who are, they're high school and college age, now's the time to just stretch yourself and do something different, because you just don't know. And you'll reflect on this years from now and go, wow, I'm really glad I did that. So that would be my advice that I would give to myself, is just to stretch yourself a little and get out of your comfort zone.
That's great. Thank you. We are now moving to a couple of questions that we received from our students. These are specifically environmental related questions. The first question, I'm going to take this one, and then Alexandra is going to follow up with the second one. This one was submitted by one of our students named Abby Posk, and Abby is a PhD candidate here at the Levin College. Her question's a little long, so I'm going to try to read it slow so you all understand, but if you need to have me repeat it, let me know. So her question starts off with, Catherine Tumber, who's the author of Small, Gritty, and Green, proposes that America's small industrial cities have great potential to be part of a, quote, sustainable future and productive green economy. Due to their size, industrial background, access to land, local agriculture, and manufacturing/workforce skills that can be repurposed for renewable energy technology. And the question is, to what extent do you agree or disagree as it relates to the city of Cleveland? And what does Cleveland have to do to get there? Everybody understand it, or want me to repeat it? Jen, I saw you respond first.
Well, I'll just start by saying, I mean, I agree with it certainly, mostly because everybody everywhere has a role. So certainly cities like Cleveland do as well. I think, in this area, one of our big things that we should probably focus on is access to local foods and reducing transportation emissions. Those I think are big for Cleveland. And one of the things I've been thinking about in terms of this lately is that it's, in some ways, it might be best for us to, not frame it in sustainability and environmental terms, right? In Cleveland, maybe we're better off by talking about boosting the economy and creating good local, we'll call them green jobs, right? In a new energy industry, for example, right? We can get to the same ends, but not pitch it as part of a progressive green agenda, even though I think that's what we need. But, and there's good news on this front, like clean energy jobs are outnumbering fossil fuel related jobs in Ohio. Last I checked anyway, I'm sure we've lost some of those now, but that's great. That's great progress. And by being able to say things like that, I think that's going to move our cause ahead, because everyone can agree, right? We need a healthy economy. We need, we need good jobs for everyone. So we can meet multiple goals in Cleveland by moving in that direction.
Thank you.
And I'm chiming in. I agree, and I agree with you, Jennifer, as well. I said I think that Cleveland has an amazing place. That it's an amazing place. It's filled with, like, we have our Great Lakes, and we have lots of opportunities. We have lots of vacant land, diverse populations, and then we have world-class educational institutions and medical facilities, as well as the ingenuity as seen by endless and ever-growing small businesses, right? So I think it's a multi-layered, multifaceted approach that will get us there as part of a circular economy. Like, I like the idea of us focusing on a circular economy where the support is now shared and mutual to ensure the survival of everyone, because that's, I think, what it's going to take for us to come out of this pandemic as well. We're seeing the loss of jobs and loss of revenue because things are shutting down, but we also have the capabilities of building it back up by relying more closely in neighborhoods and communities instead of spreading ourselves so thin, which will be of great help. And we need students to have the great concepts that kind of lift us out of all of this as well, which is where they come in.
Paul, I saw Paul. Sorry, Kurt, I saw Paul first. He beat you to the buzzer.
Sorry, Kurt. Yeah, this is really close to home for me. I mean, renewable energy, like I said, I'm a big environmental person. Seeing all these things, you know, being green, sustainable initiatives, I think that's all good things for us to be doing. As I mentioned before, you know, my passion about the Great Lake and protecting our water resources. My experience has been, you know, we have a lot of big companies that are in Solon. We have Nestle's. We used to have L'Oreal, Swagelok. These are all big Fortune 500 companies, and they want to be part of those initiatives. And when you think about the economy for Cleveland and things like that, of how, you know, how do we bring, you know, these big companies to town? You know, if you start initiatives like that and you make it part of your program, I think you're going to see a lot of them come here. It's the Huntington Convention Center. You know, part of our tour as the mentoring program, our environmental group, we went over and toured the new Huntington Convention Center. Their whole theme there is sustainability. And, you know, they want to deal with vendors that are part of that program. They use the grind to energy. And they take that, you know, all their food scraps and stuff that they use, they grind it, they take it over to Quasar, and Quasar produces bioenergy with methane gas. And their Cleveland Public Power is running off of the gas that Quasar is producing. That's huge. If you look at, you know, our world, all these natural resources that we're using, this is what we all should be doing. The problem is trying to get it here in the United States is, you know, we have, you know, easy access to all our natural resources. Gas is cheap. So there's nothing really driving it, you know. So I think, you know, everyone's got to get on board, you know, the people that are behind this and you know, get the lobbyists out there and push it as much as we can. And you obviously need the political support to drive those issues as well. But I think if that can happen and there can be some common ground that we can find to work towards that end, we're all going to be better off. I've investigated it for our facility. As a matter of fact, I started looking at ways. I mean, we all know landfill space is, you know, dwindling, and you know what's going to happen when these landfills fill up. So, you know, our dilemma is, where do we take our sludge? Where do we take our stuff to get rid of? You know, I'm looking at a lot of money every year to have to take our waste to landfills. I've got a renewable energy source that I could, if I could make something happen here at the plant, I could potentially cover my electricity bill. And again, you know, my whole purpose is to try to keep our rates down for our residents. So if I can cut off my electricity bill and produce renewable energy, I'm helping the environment, I'm helping our residents. I mean, it all comes together. I mean, it's such a great picture when you look at it. If you know, especially as an environmental team that I look at all of us that are here, if we can make that happen, what a wonderful place it would be. It's just, it's unfortunate. It's a lot harder than just to talk about it.
Go on, jump in.
Sure. I just, you know, I'll give a couple examples where it's already happening, and it's not necessarily Cleveland, but it's Northeast Ohio in the Lordstown area. We've got the GM Ultium battery plant. This is under construction right now for the purposes of building batteries for electric vehicles. Right next to that, we have the former GM Lordstown plant, which is now owned by Lordstown Motors, which wants to develop a battery-powered electric vehicles. So, and while those aren't in Cleveland, those are big enough projects that, you know, it impacts all of Northeast Ohio. So these sustainable, these greener energy, newer type technologies, it's happening. And I guess the other thing I would say where I always have kind of scratched my head about Northeast Ohio is we have Lake Erie. We have the most reliable drinking water and clean water resource probably in the world, given the Great Lakes. And I'd like to see if there's more that the Northeast Ohio and Ohio can do with that. Are there ways to market that to bring more industries or those companies that may need or need to rely on water? Are there opportunities there? We also have just a fabulous infrastructure. It is aging in some respects, but our wastewater and our drinking water infrastructure, there are parts of the country that would just love to have what we have in terms of water resources. And I think that makes us very competitive in the future. My thoughts.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone. Alexandra, I think we have one more question. Is that right?
So we have one more question that was submitted by a student beforehand. We do have a question from an audience member. And before we get to the student submitted question, I do quickly want to remind the audience to please continue submitting your questions. We could probably take a couple audience questions. We have a little bit left. So I did see some hands raised. If you can actually submit your questions in the Q&A box, that is the preferred method. So thank you in advance for doing that. And then we do have a question submitted by Anton Krieger. So Anton Krieger is an MPA student at the Levin College, and Anton is actually Kurt's mentee this year. So this is Anton's question. With Northeast Ohio experiencing more frequent extreme rainfall events, what type of organizations can provide oversight to municipalities in their planning commission phases so that they don't overdevelop and inflate current flooding issues? So again, with Northeast Ohio experiencing more frequent extreme rainfall events, what type of organizations can provide oversight to municipalities and their planning commission phases so they don't overdevelop and inflate current flooding issues? And Kurt, was that a hand?
Yeah, I'll take the first stab at this one. In Northeast Ohio, especially Cuyahoga County, we are blessed with some fabulous watershed groups. They're very competent, and their mission is to protect their watersheds. So they're a great resource to start with. We also have the Soil and Water Conservation District and our MS4s, which are municipal separate stormwater sewer systems. So those are regulatory organizations that are charged with managing stormwater. So between our watershed groups, our MS4s, and our Soil and Water Conservation Districts, that is a really good, they can provide the technical expertise, they can provide the education to help communities implement stormwater management programs so that they can handle these larger rainfall events. The one thing I'd also want to point out is through state rules we have there are regulatory obligations, but the communities can go above and beyond that. Our state rules, they only accommodate, we have post-construction on a construction site. Post-construction, you got to be able to manage your water that's coming off your construction site, but you have to manage it up to 0.9 inches. And I can't tell you why I'm sure there was some negotiation that went on and they ended up splitting the baby and leaving it at 0.9 inches. But, that's what the regulation calls for. But we all know that we get significant rain events now that are well beyond 0.9 inches. I mean, sometimes we're getting 3 and 4 inches over a 2-hour period. So the communities, if they're interested in, they can go above and beyond what our state rules require, and through local ordinances can require more robust stormwater management. And that's where, if you're working with the watershed districts or the MS4s or your soil and water, or even my office, we could assist as your local legislators are working on those ordinances.
Anyone else? Paul?
I was just Kurt, you mentioned everything that I had thought about. So yeah, Cuyahoga Soil and Water, I know we had used them for a lot of our projects down there. They were a big help for us as far as controlling construction runoff and things like that. So definitely a good resource. ODNR, as you mentioned, all the EPA, you didn't mention the EPA, but I mean, you guys are huge. I mean, I usually turn to you guys, when we're looking for guidance on a lot of things. So you hit it.
Great, Jen. Anything you want to add?
Nope, nothing to add.
All right, so we do have a
Kind of in
few
my wheelhouse.
audience submitted questions. So this next question comes from Brandon. Brandon is a graduating Master's of Environmental Studies student. So he asks, for your office, what is different in your hiring process and onboarding processes during COVID? How have you adapted? And how have you been able to continue to train new people? And how is this going? How are folks adjusting to this? Kurt?
I'm going to go. Well, as far as the hiring, Brandon, we're still in a hiring freeze, and we haven't brought anyone on since March. Now that is going to get lifted, and we're going to start doing our priority positions. And we're going to be interviewing virtually. We've never done that before. So it is going to really change the way we do business with hiring, and I'm looking forward to when we get back to a little more normal on that. One of the other things you pointed out, though, and this is something I've been struggling with, is prior to March, we did bring on a lot of new staff, and we are all working from home right now. And in my office, and I know this isn't uncommon from any office in America for that matter, but there's a lot of informal mentoring and a lot of informal knowledge that you get just by standing around the coffee pot or standing around the water cooler. And that is the challenge that I see some of our organizations is how do we help get that knowledge transfer? Because you just can't turn and look to your office mate or your someone in the next cube and ask them a question. So that's what I've been working on and talking with our management staff and just trying to figure out a way that we can get a little more social, and we got to do it. Our office uses Teams. You might use Zoom, but how do you get a little more social, and how do you have those mentoring? Not formal mentoring, but just sharing technical information, or just someone's retiring and you want to pick their brain to see what because there's that you're going to lose that knowledge when they walk out the door. So we're struggling with some of that. Some things we have done is having periodic just a 30-minute coffee virtual coffee pot discussion, or just getting a random, my assistant chief and I, what we're going to do is we're just going to have a random number generator where we're going to take 8 or 10 people, and we're just going to set up a meeting and just set it up and say, hey, you can join in and let's just talk, and just to see how things are going, just to try and get people together and to see how their careers are and how they're managing in these COVID times. So hope that helps.
Paul, go for it.
Yeah, Kurt, I definitely hear what you're talking about there as far as the hiring freeze. We're under a hiring freeze as well, but obviously we're considered essential. I mean, as far as the EPA is too. So we're actually looking to hire an electrician right now, but and we just hired one of our assistant coordinators, and we did it through Zoom. It's not ideal. I mean, this is fine. You know, we can talk to each other here, but just it's nice to actually see the person in person when you're hiring. I think just speaking from, you know, being on many interviews and interviewing a lot of people, it just means so much more to see the person up close and not on a Zoom meeting. I mean, a lot of stuff can be prepared ahead of time, and it works. You know, we were able to hire that way, but it's in my opinion, I'd rather have a in-person interview with somebody. It's definitely difficult times. I mean, you know, just through the whole COVID thing, we had to change our whole operation. You know, obviously because we are an essential service. If someone went, you know, contracted the virus and we had a bunch of staff go down, we'd be in a whole lot of trouble. Fortunately, we have a lot of our operators are certified. A lot of our maintenance guys are certified. So when it all started, we were able to run half the staff for 1 week, and then they were off. And then we came back and ran the other staff that was off the other week. So we were able to minimize exposure that way. We had actually tried to prepare and have food stock there in case, because we were a 24-hour operation. In case we had a shutdown, I had food there provided for everybody. We had cots, you know, if someone needed to sleep. So fortunately, knock on wood, we haven't got to that point. Everyone does a very good job of wearing their masks, and it's been difficult. It's definitely been difficult. You know, all our deliveries are at the door, but you know, we have hired and we have used Zoom. So I hope that answers this question.
I don't really have much to add. I mean, I've already told you I'm a office of one right now, though I do hire students for projects occasionally. So for me, it's really just been rethinking what are the things they can do that I could hire students for to do, you know, at home. And because so much of what I would do otherwise is on campus and a physical presence and help people understand the things that they need to be doing to incorporate sustainability. So my past months have been, how do I transition almost everything I do to a virtual platform and still be engaging and get people involved, which is tricky for all of the reasons, you know, you guys have just mentioned.
All right, thanks everyone. So we do have one last audience submitted question and then we'll wrap things up. And I do just want to inform the audience that Philena had some meetings to attend to, so she had to step away, so she may or may not be back. But she's very busy, so we're grateful that she was able to make time for today's panel. So our last question comes from Amira. Amira is an MPA student and a mentee in the mentoring program. So Amira asks, how do you stay positive during these times where there is an ongoing effort to dismantle environmental regulations?
I guess I'll take a quick stab at this one. And we had a similar question that came up, and they looked at, you know, what changes do we foresee with President Biden coming in and his environmental policy changes? And at least at the state level, the reality is we have a state legislature that establishes the laws that, and then our agency will establish the rules. So you don't change those overnight. They're pretty well established, and it takes an effort to change our laws and rules. So, you know, we didn't necessarily see a lot of big policy changes on the state level with the Trump administration, and I don't expect we're going to see a whole lot on the next administration either. As a state, we do have ability to control our destiny a little more. And the example I'll give you is Governor DeWine came in with his H2 Ohio program. That was something it was in his first State of the State address. He wanted to do it, got the support of the legislature, got it put in the budget. And now between Ohio EPA, ODNR, and Department of Ag, we are focusing on implementing the first 2 years of the H2 Ohio program. So, I mean, that was a big policy change for the state of Ohio, and really put a focus on water resources, looking at, sustainable farming practices because of our algal blooms, and, trying to address other water contamination. So to answer the question, I don't necessarily lose sleep or get, upset about some of the drama or some of the hyperbole you sometimes hear coming out of, with all of the policy issues. They just haven't affected my job, and they haven't, affected our ability to protect the environment in the state of Ohio. So I don't know if I answered the question or not.
So the thing that I would add to that is that for all of the worrisome or sometimes downright scary things that we see coming at a federal and sometimes a state level as well, I can come up with at least a handful of local examples that are amazing, right? Terrific organizations across Cleveland doing great, respectable, important work in, your own municipality, at the city level. Cuyahoga County having an office of sustainability is pretty unique in this state. Like, there is so much great stuff happening and so many terrific people working in this field all over this city, this state, this country, that I can still remain optimistic that we're doing really good work. And, look, Ohio has had some really abysmal energy policies, for example, and those come to light, right? So, there's legislation out there to repeal HB6, which was kind of a disaster. And so that's good, right? Things come to light, things I think get remedied. And like I said, lots of really terrific work happening all over the place at a grassroots level, and, coordinated high-level organizations as well. So really it's, how can we stay positive, and how do we figure out what our little role in all of that is, and do a little bit of that every day? Because I think that's what makes you feel good, right? When you contributed a little something to making it all better, that's going to add positive outlook.
Paul, any comments?
I think they hit the nail on the head. I think there's not a whole lot of changes that we've seen that have directly affected our operation. And again, I believe in a lot of the stuff that we're doing. So if something should come down to change it, that doesn't mean that you stop. I mean, we continue it. We believe in the environment. We believe in what we're doing. We're going to, and especially the groups that we have here in Northeast Ohio, as was mentioned, we have some awesome groups here, and that's not going to stop. It's not going to stop us at all. So it's going to continue.
Well, I think I just want to say thank you on behalf of the college and our students. And I know I've enjoyed it. I wrote down a whole bunch of notes. I usually don't write notes or pay attention, except doodle or get my wife's shopping list. But I actually took a bunch of notes, and I just want to say thank you. Like, for example, take a leap of faith. Think of your first jobs as stepping stones. Learn to ask the right questions. Be willing to fail. Reach out to people. Go to events. These are some valuable tips that I heard sprinkled through the conversation. And I just want to say thank you on behalf of the students for sharing your time and your wisdom and all the years of service to the community, not only to the mentoring program, but to I would say to be the first line of defense to protect the environment and try to think outside the box, and not only think of it as like a defense, but I think a very optimistic, proactive approach to this. So the concept of green energy jobs and thinking outside the box, what Paul mentioned as far as potentially taking some waste product and making that transform that into electricity or resource for the community. So I think this has been a fantastic conversation. I really want to say thank you for all the years of service to the mentoring program as well, into your commitment specifically to the students and being willing to take their calls and spend some time and have virtual coffees, I guess, this year. But I can't say enough on behalf of the college and our center how wonderful it has. You all have to be part of our family, and I'm just really honored and privileged to do that. We're dealing with this pandemic, we're all trying to get through it. But to me, like when I get to see everybody's faces on the screen and know who's involved and how we've been together for so long, I know we're going to get through this period of time. And I just want to say thanks. It is 5:56, and I promise to get you out by 6 o'clock. So do you all have any kind of last, do we miss anything, last words of advice or wisdom before we part ways?
I think the thing that I took out of everything that was said here, and Rob, you and I had talked about this all the time, but I think Jennifer, you mentioned it, networking. that is huge. That is the key to success. If you're going to take anything out of today, networking.
Perfect. Kurt or Jen? You're good to go.
Just thanks for having us. Really appreciate being here.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot, everybody. It is 5:56. I kept us on time. For all of you that are going to class, have a wonderful evening. For all of you that are going on to your evening's events, please be safe, be careful, wear a mask 6 feet apart, and stay in your basement. It's pretty fun. I've been here for about 9 months, and so far it's so good. So y'all take care. Be safe. Happy holidays. Happy Thanksgiving. And don't eat too much turkey. Take care.
All right, thanks.
Bye, everyone. Bye.
Night, everyone.